was just sharing that we have a cozy afternoon today. And as we started the session half an hour back, Mr. Pillai had probably touched every aspect and provoked everyone in terms of what questions lies ahead. And as we see water, gas and electricity, which touches every customer, every citizen in any city, it's been a very common question across the globe that should a customer look at three different utilities trying to pay his bills, trying to contact the call center or the customer care part of it, and how difficult his life is. So obviously, the question is three of the important factors which touches everyone every day, and probably electricity touching every minute of everyone's lives. How important it is to make customers' life easier. How difficult is an infrastructure to be put across. And as my panelist, Mr. Hardeep Rai, shared it, they have started the journey of the gas distribution in the country. And there is a lot of infrastructure to be put. So I wanted to just briefly touch what infrastructure is required in all three areas and dominantly on the power distribution. Is there merit in the single billing part of it? And what sort of customer convenience can one look at when eventually one sees at it? And obviously the future opportunities which is lying ahead of us. I'm not giving a presentation, but a glimpse of a few things. Obviously, for those who don't know about us, Tata Power is in Delhi distribution since 2001-2. We have close to 1.7 million customers as of now, around a revenue of close to 8,000 crores, and we serve a peak load of around 1,900 megawatt as of now. And obviously in distribution, when you start, the first question is coming from the customer's point of view, what really matters to him. And all of us are here customers, so it starts with reliable power supply, and once that has been done, the few other things, whether my meter reading is correct, my billing is accurate, and if that happens, it goes on to say, how do I pay my bill? Do I have the proper avenue, the collection centers? And if at all I have questions, do I have someone to call and talk to that person? And if I have to really share my pains, is there a customer care center available? So as we see in the last 10 odd years, or I would say a little more than that, we had dominantly state electricity boards supplying power. And Mumbai has been fortunate to have a private distribution for the last 100 odd years. And probably it's one lucky place where people go on to say that you don't have to buy a candle in the city. And they were lucky enough to experience a high reliable power supply for the last 100 years. And in a country like us, if one can get reliable power for the last 100 years, I'm sure the citizens over there must have really been lucky to go through this part of it. So that was not the case across the country. And when we took over distribution in 2001-2, we started with the journey of 56% loss, which has come down to 8%. So the point is, what was it even 2 decades back in our capital? So obviously, it's a lot of work has to be done in this space across the country. So the kind of infrastructure required is going to be humongous, both or while water is being distributed, in terms of gas as well as the power part of it when you travel across to many cities now. while a few cities have been given for private distribution, but it's a long, long way to go in terms of changing the whole sector. And we all know distribution in the power sector itself, the last mile part of the journey has been very, very tough. So managing the distribution sector has not been great. The last 4 to 5 years, a lot of work has been done, but still the sector has challenges, and dominantly on the finance side as well. So given this, if you want to modernize it, this I shared with you. If you take any distribution company, you require a GIS landscape, and it's fundamentally, when you're touching everyone in your area, without GIS in today's context, it's very difficult to carry out a smart operation. So when you have a GIS landscape, obviously it's easy for your network planning, it's easy to carry out your customer indexing, and the entire gamut of call center operations to revenue collections to billing, everything can be done in a much, much easier way. So we, of course, carried out this 10 to 12 years back. We went on to spend around 15 crores over a period of time. So there is a huge amount of money, time, and energy which goes into it. Call center is a no-brainer. We have many of the retail part of the organizations doing it. So we also do have one, and we receive a lot of calls day in, day out, managing a humongous amount of calls throughout the year. And as we add close to 90,000 customers every day, the journey starts from there till he gets connected to the revenue collection as well. So it's a very well-developed call center, and as we travel across the country, if you see other call centers in different parts of the cities, as far as distribution is concerned, yes, it's not there. So is the customer care center part of it. While we operate in a 500 and odd square kilometer area, we have put across 13 customer care centers so that the customers across Delhi are able to reach us very easily, be it for the payment part of it or the query part of it. So what we also see is, thanks to the digitalization, today our payment is happening, almost 56% of the customers pay through digital mode. So the walk-ins have come down as far as the payment part of it is concerned in the customer care centers. We also have different avenues of payment, but then you have a set of people who are still comfortable going to the customer care centers and paying it, and it will take some time for them to traverse towards the digital mode part of it. And there is an infrastructure requirement when it boils down to the customer care center, including the manpower part of it, to train them and then to see that the service is given to the best possible way to the customers. Meter reading, billing, whether it's water, whether it is power or it is gas. In Delhi, for example, we have piped gas. And I would say, while I'm a customer as part of that, the process is pretty robust. While the meter reader does come and touch us every month, in terms of a payment, in terms of every other process, it's pretty much streamlined. The water part of it, DJB, the Delhi Jal Vidyut Board, has also, to some areas, at least where I live, they've got a plan of putting smart meters. They've put a few, as I understand as well. But then, yeah, is there a duplicacy of infrastructure? It's left to one's imagination in terms of how they would go. So when you talk about the customer, whether it's gas, water, or electricity, does a meter reader come 3 times a month? Yes. So it's 36 times a year. For the bill delivery, again, 36 times a year. Multiplied by 3 utilities, you have almost 100 plus times touching the premises of the customer. So when you boil down to the question, is there merit in discussing this topic? Yes, there is. In 2008, I did visit Singapore Power Company, and they had a system of one common bill. So they had gas, water, and electricity. And when it boiled down to the customer convenience, when I discussed in some of the customer care centers, which they had customer care centers, the payment part of it was much easier. And of course, correspondence with that particular company which was handling only on the supply side was easier. So obviously there are proven cases across the globe, and cities like Singapore have ensured that when it boils down to customer, how these three important areas, it can make his life convenient. So if you look forward, how can we travel from here down the line? So what I see is the wire and supply segregation is about to happen. We have been debating that for the last 4 years, and maybe it's around the corner. And if that happens, the supply business will be separate. Electricity law did not do that earlier. And if the supply business is separate, then comes the opportunity for the people who manage the supply business and get a supply license to not only take care of the power consumers, but they can also take care of the gas as well as the water part of it. And what is the easiest part for them to do, and what is the tough part for them to do it? So as Mr. Hardeep Rai rightfully shared, there are some questions in terms of what can be shared and what cannot be. So let's take some of the areas like the call center, the customer care centers, which probably are areas where it can be done in a way that you plan it well. So you have people who manage the gas part of it separate, the power part of it separate, structure them properly so that the supply company, whoever is a supply company across India, is able to get onto the customer queries and the complaints, register it and resolve it. Where one common infrastructure can be taken care as far as the customer is concerned. Now, when you talk about, let's say, meter reading, you're touching the same premise 3 times. And as we switch towards smart meter, obviously that journey is a little long as well. While we have aspirations to do it in the next couple of years, there is a technology issue, be it communication or be it the way smart meters would deliver what it is. By the time we get adopted, there will be a journey. So wherever the smart cities are being put across as of now, as we heard some time back, Mr. Tayal had shared their aspirations. And while they have the core infrastructure, but they still need to get into laying the gas pipelines, ensuring a good distribution company getting settled over there, etc. So there's a lot of work to be done there. So while the core framework is in place, before one puts its steps over there and invest money in all these areas, there's probably a good opportunity to reduce cost in these infrastructure. So electricity sector, which eventually paves way for supply and wire segregation, and the supply business actually starts from the meter onwards. That means he's actually managing the customer area only. So probably he can manage the water as well as the gas. So at least to start with the gas part of it, because that is what is being done across the country, so that duplication of cost is not there. And one person who will benefit is the customer in terms of every aspect, the cost reduction part of it and the convenience part of it. And since globally it's a proven structure, yes, it can be done. So some facilitation has to happen, and probably the Smart Grid Forum has been working on that, and probably that facilitation can happen in the coming days. Now, as a test case, as a pilot case, Tata Power Delhi as well as Indraprastha Gas have entered into an MOU. We'll be signing it in the next 10 days. And we would venture into this opportunity of trying to see how we can do this in Delhi itself. And we've been working this for the last 1 or 2 years. And finally, we have come down to certain understanding of implementation. And as Tata Power, we also distribute power in Ajmer. It's a small city. And we plan to do the pilot run in that part of the area and then see how we can do it in other parts of the country.